Thank you, Tim, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me for the next 10 or so minutes. If I can, I'll just jump, thank you. So essentially, we are a biotech and we focus on chronic illnesses, and two specific chronic illnesses that are lead candidates in what we do would be pain and the other would be depression. And during COVID, we get a sense on how big mental health is. The beauty about Medlab now is whilst a lot of our work focuses on developing tomorrow's drugs, we are in market now and we're building revenue from a nutraceutical division that we have. Some of you who know me will know that I have a lot of legacy in the nutraceutical space here and abroad, and they're available through Australian pharmacy. We get into legal and regulated compassionate use programs that are patient payable. And in one particular one, the Nannabus product cited there is part of that. And we move into early phase partnering. You've heard the CEOs before me talk about diminishing risk and building and opening global markets. Outside of that, one of the core programs we undertake in Medlab is developing this uniqueness. And for us, it's around delivery platform development. How do we make something work better in the human body? And if I can, next slide, please. And in doing so, we can articulate a drug that has better safety profiles, quicker uptake, and can challenge or rival standard care we have now. Notwithstanding, our lead drug program is known as Nannabus. It is a focal point for the company, and we have done clinical work here where we have shown safety, efficacy, and tolerability, and we are in phase 3 development across Australia, the US, and the UK now. We have done our pre-IND meetings with the US FDA. We have a pretty good sense on how this is going to work. And this program itself is actually subject to a fair bit of patient payable compassionate use under the Australian Special Access Scheme. The intent on this drug, very simply, is to target bone metastases in advanced cancer patients. This is a primary source of pain. Standard care is opioids. If we go to the next slide, please. The general takeaway is whilst opioids are widespread in their use for advanced cancer pain, generally for the majority of patients, they simply do not work. That being, they do not alleviate pain or alleviate it to such a point that the patient can have some normality in life. So in looking at Western medical models, we adopt what's called the World Health Organization pain scale, and it basically tells a doctor like me how to upskill a patient into mixed or heavy opioids, depending on how we rate their pain. Nannabus's therapeutic entry point is to get people just before they progress into opioids. So medically, we refer to them as opioid naive. And in doing so, we can significantly alter the course of that patient's trajectory on opioid use, subsequent dependence, and abuse. Next slide, please. So this is Nannabus. Our work to date has been done at the Royal North Shore Hospital here in Sydney. Our lead principal investigator is Professor Stephen Clark. He is considered highly in oncology, not just here, but also abroad. We have moved through the traditional gates where we have done clinical studies. We're also doing real world observational studies. We have done full CMC, that's your quality manufacturing, analytical and validation packages. We have done our pre-IND meetings with the US FDA, and here and now we are finalizing our documentation for a multi-center phase 3 trial that will see us Australia, UK, and the US. And subsequent to that, there'll be a number of significant catalysts that over the next short few years should see us through to full drug application in the US itself. Next slide, please. In developing a program like Nannabus, we try and fast track where we can. We work very closely with regulatory agencies, and we find that whether it's TGA here or FDA in the US, this open dialogue allows us to champion conventional wisdom in standard trial design and trial movements, and it allows us to not just save time, but save money in the fact that we can springboard forward based on their acceptance on what we do. The second part to that is core to Nannabus is a delivery platform that we use, which we call NanoCell, and I'll touch on that ever so briefly shortly. But it, as you can see, is obviously heavily protected under patents here and abroad. Next slide, please. Some value points. We look at Nannabus as a fast-acting non-opioid alternative, specifically for breast and prostate cancers with bone metastases, but this is also now being opened up to lung. Currently, we have about 300 Australian doctors, that's nationwide, utilizing the drug, authorized federally under a compassionate program. And as I said before, our regulatory models are going to be moving us into the Northern Hemisphere quite soon. Next slide, please. Give you an idea of the sense of what this SAS or this special access scheme is, this compassionate program. We look at accumulated bottles that we dispense through this program. We use this program to develop advocacy for the product and key opinion leaders for tomorrow. But even under observational data, which is all ethically approved and TGA approved, we see results in what we're following or what we're tracking that are very consistent to what we see in the clinical settings. And in that, we see significant reductions in patient-reported pain. We see significant reductions in the amount of morphine that our patients need as they progress through what's left of their life. As you can imagine, a lot of these patients are entering near or final stages. Next slide, please. A quick spin-off to Nannabus allowed us to increase our cannabis portfolio. This is where I pause for a moment and I say we're really not a pot stock. Cannabis to us is an active pharmaceutical ingredient, not dissimilar from an antibiotic or insulin that you would know. But what you have here is examples of our work where we've spun off from a lead program without detrimenting it, been able to place it into revenue producing markets here and abroad. Next slide, please. I touched on before by saying that core to Nannabus was a delivery platform. We're big on delivery platform work. We use a lot of nanoparticles. We've produced a delivery platform that's been articulated through University of Sydney to validate our work that has very high bioavailability. And ultimately what it does is it solves drug solubility problems. Now, for some of you, you're sitting there going, what is that? Drug solubility problems relates to how a drug will disintegrate, considering that you're swallowing it, and get uptaken by the body. Most drugs that you consume, you ingest, are very poorly absorbed. We can change that quite extensively and scale up production very easily by the use of the nanocell delivery platform. Next slide, please. Give you a quick look at what we're doing at Medlab. We're using the delivery platform, I'm sorry, it's small, across 23 other generic medicines now, because one of the go-to markets for that is the ability to repurpose the generic and subsequently breathe some level of patency back into some of these generics that we see here and now. Next slide, please. On the nutraceutical front and in the mental health area, we have a product that we've put through the gates of depression trials. We have just completed a phase 2 trial with University of Technology Queensland. We are awaiting results, but this is just to give you an idea on how we invest in programs moving forward that ultimately, once we have that market approval from the drug regulator, opens the market potential up to what we can say, what we can do, and how we can globalize that movement going on. Just in the era of time, I might skip 2 slides and go to our current revenue slide. Thank you. Most of our sales are here in Australia. We have very little export business, but even with COVID here and now, we are moving stronger and stronger into international markets. And we actually have partnership programs for this year starting up literally next week. Next slide, please. Pin to our underscore, obviously, is we drive the R&D to drive product, to drive evidence, which ultimately leads to commercialization. Quickly here, you can see that a number of our programs are oncology related, or they are, or they are delivery platform related. Last slide, please. Investment summary, thank you. Just from an investment summary, and I'll stop after this slide. Our trial work leads to multiple value creation catalysts and subsequent news flow. You're about to see a lot more come out as we step forward into US territories and we step forward into UK territories. Early globalization avenues are underway. We've seen that with some of the cannabinoid products this year alone. We focus on very significant unmet patient needs. So we have a very strong health policy conversation that goes forward with the regulators very strong patent portfolio, a wonderful and experienced leadership team. And the big thing is whilst we're doing research, ladies and gentlemen, we're generating revenue now. I'm going to pause there and open to questions.
Thank you, Sean. Some questions here. So how successful have companies who alter delivery methods for drugs been in the past?
Yeah, really good question. Actually, a number have been very successful. Look, it's biotech, so you have a risk of failure, but then when you do get it, the prize is significant. Delivery technologies for drug improvement have been around, wow, most of my life. And a lot of the medicines that we take for consideration today have had a delivery platform employed to them to make them safer or easier for a doctor to administer to a patient. Moving forward, as we are not generating new antibiotics, as there is less and less blockbusters coming out, you'll find a lot of the pharma partners that have significant generic portfolios are now looking to innovations in platform to keep life or breathe new life into their existing sales portfolios.
Now, it can take a long time to get into the US market. So what's your kind of plan for other regions globally and then to the United States?
Okay, so at the moment we are, where do I start? We are involved in a number of different types of partnering programs at the moment. There is one that spearheads or comes to a head rather as of Monday. Our goal at the end of the day is preferably someone other than us will take it into these larger markets. So partnering is key. Aggressively, we have to do that. COVID restrictions, time differences and so forth are making that a little bit more difficult than first thought. But we have initiatives that are starting up as of next week that I'm hoping as we move forward will gel in the near future. The other thing is once we get on record with FDA INDs and they're forthcoming, we anticipate them before Christmas this year, there is a different type of public record that goes out to people that watch that new IND space as well. So between news flow here, news flow we generate in the US, in the UK and in the Euros, we hope that we can pull out a worthy partner.
Okay, and just one last question. So who are your main competitors in this space?
Believe it or not, a number of people will look at us and go, well, you do cannabis, therefore you're a pot stock, so therefore your competitors are the pot stocks. But I think that that's far from the truth. And unfortunately, the devil is in the detail. Most pot stocks are leaf touches. They grow it, they bottle it, they sell it. Right? We're looking at building a regulated product with approved market claims, patents behind it, so we get some market dominance for 15 plus years. In that, I think the best comp you could probably look at is a NASDAQ listed company called GW Pharmaceuticals. They're, last I checked, worth around about 3-point-something billion US. They had 9-12 months ago, one CBD product approved by the FDA for a very tight indication. And subsequent to that, about a month ago, they got a second indication on that. And they're producing revenues in excess of 100 million US per quarter.
And those products do take a long time to get to market, though. That's correct, isn't it?
That's true. That's true. Look, if I can be blunt, we're looking at doing full drug filing in around about 3 years. I know to most people that's I want to slit my throat kind of mentality. But in that, there are significant catalysts that move with us. Two of those catalysts is the use of Nannabus for compassionate grounds in those Northern Hemisphere regions for ethical use.